With its ruffles and lace, the boatwoman's bonnet is perhaps the most recognisable piece of dress attached to the canals, and in this video we're going to take a closer look at it. Although we don't know for certain when women started coming onto the canals, it's quite plausible they may have begun working on the boats during the Napoleonic Wars, helping make up the labour quota. Certainly in 1816, Mary Stamps was helping her husband work a boat for Pickfords, and in 1819 John Hassel travelled along the Grand Junction Canal and commented how there were 1 or 2 females generally attending to each boat. There's more historic examples, but I don't want to bore you. These women would have been wearing a sort of mob cap or a soft mushroom hat, similar to these. Over the next few decades, bonnets gained a stiff brim and then a curtain hanging down over the shoulders, turning into what we would know as a sunbonnet. These are bonnets held by the Victoria and Albert Museum, dating to the mid-Victorian era, and you can see there's not much between these and the fluffy crowns of the boatwomen. No two bonnets were the same, and there's some debate as to whether some of the Victorian boatwomen were buying ready-made bonnets and embellishing them. Certainly having both the time and space to cut out the fabric for a new bonnet could have been difficult, so perhaps some of the canal-side clothing shops took orders and sold pre-cut fabric. We're using a flower-sprigged cotton here to make an everyday bonnet from about 1900. Boatwomen wouldn't necessarily have been working with paper patterns like we are here, they may have been making theirs by eye. There's about 2 yards of fabric here. This piece of fabric will become the hood itself, and we're marking out where to put the channels for the shaping cord and where to put the folds that will become the ruffles. We're using a blue tailor's chalk that you can brush off the fabric when you're finished. You wouldn't normally mark the full width of the fabric like this, we're just doing it so that you can see it better. This is a Jones CS machine from about 1900, and it wasn't that unusual for boatwomen to have a machine like this hidden away under the sidebed so they could make their family's clothes. She's a noisy creature, but Gracie's a good solid machine. Like everything else, the bonnet was quite regional. The Midlands tended to produce the most poofy and ornate bonnets, while the South had the plainest. The North seems to have preferred ruffles to lace, but sometimes ignored the bonnet altogether in favour of a shawl tied over the head. Our bonnet has reached the shaping stage. This particular part will become the brim, and what we're doing is threading cotton cord through channels sewn into the fabric. These will be stitched down at the ends to make sure they don't slip. In total, this particular bonnet used about 20 yards of cord. After the death of Queen Victoria, Most boatwomen made themselves plain black bonnets as a mark of respect at the death of the old queen, but these bonnets far outlasted the mourning period, remaining the bonnet of choice until the 20s, when younger women started to wear white once more. Our bonnet is now reaching the last stages where most of the work is done by hand. This is machine-made lace, which the boatwomen tended to use from around 1900 for their bonnets. They sometimes use broderie anglaise instead. The final assembly is done by hand, as the bulk of the cord and fabric makes it awkward for the machine to maneuver. The last thing to add is the lining fabric inside the hood, which helps give the bonnet a little more shape. Here's the hood of the bonnet before we add the curtains. You can see how the cord gives it a rigid shape while leaving it totally flexible. Once we add the curtains and a few more ruffles to hide the raw edges, our bonnet is ready to be worn. Unfortunately, my usual model is too poorly to join in Heritage Open Days, but Tommy volunteered his services for the very reasonable price of a gravy bone. I hope you've enjoyed learning a bit about the boatwoman's bonnet today, and that you'll join me and Tommy tomorrow when we have a look at spiderweb belts. Thank you for watching, and see you again soon.